So now it's time for our next and final panel for this evening, very special one. And this one is going to be led by, once again, the captain of our ship, Mr. Karthik Chidambaram. And joining him, we will welcome to the stage a phenomenal leader who we respect, someone who has built an amazing team that has resulted in cultivating a company that has been labeled as the fastest growing distributor of building products in the United States, the Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer at SRS Distribution, Mr. Rajeev Rai. And in addition to him, you guys can come on up. Here you go. Oh, you can take that, Miss Lisa. And so in addition to him, we're honored to have another very special guest among us, like, quick heads up, kind of a big deal, all right? At this moment, I would like to invite to the stage the president of Epicor and the 2022 Stevie Award winner, Woman of the Year, Miss Lisa Pope.
Yeah, thank you again, everyone. I'm really excited about this conversation. Thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you, Rajeev, for joining us at the DCKAP Roundup. Very exciting. So let me start with you, Lisa. So you are in the make, move, and sell economy, as Epicor calls it. And you have been a leader in building successful teams and successful businesses. A lot of your customers are here. What would you tell them in terms of how do they build a successful business and how do they build a successful team?
Well, that's a great question. And I think for me, it really comes down to three things. First, your people. So I'm a big people person. My leadership team, Kristen is here. She's one of 8 of our leaders across the globe that really focus on our strategic initiatives. And so recruiting and retaining the right leadership team. And for me, that's diversity. So I look to have women, different races, different cultures, different experiences. That's important to me because I think you get a different perspective. But it's also having the right attitude from that leadership team. So that's number one. I think the second thing is we really want to focus on the client. So very similar to what DCKAP thinks about. For me, I've always led with what does the customer need. And so if you build a growth strategy based on what your clients need, not on what the company needs to get a return, then it's a win-win. Because then your customers benefit and the company benefits, and you're doing it for all the right reasons. And then the third thing is obviously growth mindset. And that's hard because I know for our teams, every year we are tasked with finding growth. And to do that, that means everything you did great last year is in your run rate. So all the great ideas you brought and you got the growth, now that's in your run rate. So it's kind of like, what's next? So getting your leadership team to understand that our job isn't to manage the business, it's actually to figure out how to grow it, and that we need creative ideas, different thinking. So what we do is we try to find 3 things every fiscal year that is new and different that we're going to do to try to find growth. We only need, by the way, one of them to pay off, right? We don't need all 3, right? So it may be moving into a new market. It might be working closer with customers and a partner. It could be an acquisition. There could be, many different things that are part of that. But the concept of sort of thinking about let's have at least 3 things that we're really going to challenge the organization with each year sort of brings sort of that growth mindset. But people and your customers have to be part of that strategy. Growing for growth's sake is that's a short-term win in my mind.
That's great. People, they are your biggest asset. Thank you, Lisa. And thanks, Rajeev, for being a valued DCKAP customer. It means a lot to us. SRS is one of the largest roofing distributors in the country. So for folks in the audience who are not very familiar with SRS, why don't you tell us a little bit about what SRS does and your business?
First of all, thank you. And what a wonderful event and a venue. So congratulations to you guys. And yes, we've been working with DCKAP for a couple of years now. A little bit about SRS. We are one of the fastest growing Fortune 500 distributors in the country. And we operate across 3 major verticals, and we're the number 2 distributor in each of those verticals. So first, our bread and butter building products, which is mostly roofing related. So all your shingles, there's a 50% chance your contractor bought it from us, based here in McKinney, Texas. The second big vertical is our landscape, where we distribute a lot of the rotors, stone, hardscapes, agronomics that your friendly lawn guy will buy from us. And the third is the pool. So all your pool parts for either building a new pool or repairing a new pool, that's what we distribute across the country with about 100 plus locations. So overall, we have about 700 locations, roughly about $10 billion in revenue. And when I say fastest growing, I joined the company 3 years ago. Actually, August 27th will be precisely 3 years. We have gone from $3.8 billion to a $10 billion organization. So that's a different size and scale, and it brings its own challenges, but it's a fun problem to have.
Yeah, thank you, Rajeev. Lisa talked about growth mindset, and SRS has grown a lot by acquisitions. You have acquired a large or good number of pool and landscape distributors. When you acquire these distributors, what exactly happens, right? So how do you get them integrated in terms of your digital strategy? How do you get them integrated? Can you talk about that?
No, great question. And this is something I can tell you as a technology professional who's been in the industry for 30 plus years. It's not my creation, I'm adding to it, but our acquisition playbook is the hallmark of our growth strategy. And just some numbers, in 21, 22, we acquired about 60 plus companies, anywhere from 2 branches to 40 branches. And our integration strategy is day one integration into our ERP platform. So if we close the deal on Friday, we rip out every computer, every network, and replace it with a new computer, train the team on our ERP, and on Monday morning, they open on our ERP. And at best, we start N-2 weeks is when the acquired entity announces to their employees when we can start openly talking about it, which is something I had unheard of. I worked for Big Five Consulting at Accenture, Ernst & Young, Best Buy, and those acquisitions to have a day one integration helped us a lot in bringing them over to streamlining the process, not have a painful long transition period, so we can start introducing the people and to our culture, ways of managing business. And our success criteria is that within 3 years, all of the acquired entities are 2x of the revenue and a time and a half on profitability. So when they hear that story, that's the acquisition. And these are all very well-run, family-owned businesses, some almost 100 years old or 40, 50, second generation, third generation businesses that have joined the family. And we let them retain their brand name in the local market if it makes sense. And so we call ourselves a largest family of independent brands, but we bring the scale of a single platform to them. But we also make exceptions to this. If you really see, we were not into pool prior to 21. And as we went to kind of get into the pool business, we acquired the first 2, we got them on the single platform. But as we went for a bigger acquisition, we realized we had capability gaps. We didn't have things that they already had, like an e-commerce presence in pool was very important. We did not have an e-commerce presence for our landscape business, which was closely aligned to kind of the pool business. And we did not have certain capability like a mature warehouse management system, because the number of SKUs you manage in a pool business is far larger than what we manage in a roofing business. And so we had to take a pause and said for 6 months or 8 months, we'll let them run on their own platform, do the financial integration at the back end, but work through those gaps and then onboard them. So it is, while 95% of all the acquisitions are day one integration, but we apply pragmatism. Our biggest goal is do not hurt business, do not disturb the customer experience during the acquisition. So those are 2 big Uber goals that drive our acquisition playbook, and that's worked so far so good for us.
Thank you, Rajeev. These are great perspectives. And Lisa, the same question to you. Epicor also does its own share of acquisitions. You acquire companies and grow. What are your lessons learned with acquisitions or growth? Yeah.
Well, first, I agree with you. So for our customers' experience, we agree that when you're doing acquisitions, the sooner you can bring them over to the systems, process, and everything else works good. I think for us, the software industry is sort of intriguing. Epicor has grown up through acquisitions, so clearly Prophet 21 was part of that. Eclipse was part of that. Our Kinetic manufacturing. Oddly enough, I started with a software company called Triad Systems 30 years ago back in Southern California as a pre-sales person selling into the True Values ACE stores with a hard goods retail system that Epicor has purchased. And so many of the people that I worked with 30 years ago are now are still with the company, which is great to see. But I think for us, we do very purposeful acquisitions. So it's easy in the software industry to get sort of enamored with what's out for sale. So if we wanted to double our size tomorrow, we're a $1 billion software company, which is in the top 10%, by the way. We could go buy another $1 billion company, but would it be relevant to our customers, right? So if we want to grow, we could grow quickly like that. Get the money, use private equity, fund it, do it. We've really taken a different approach from a lot of software companies and said, bigger is better if it serves our clients. So most of our acquisitions now are very purposeful. We have a team now, a dedicated team that reports into our corporate office that looks for companies that we think would be great additions to our Epicor family. And that's largely based on feedback from you. So when you see product gaps, you see an area where we're not maybe delivering a particular solution, that comes back to us and that goes on our list. And then we try to proactively go to those companies. Could be family run, could be a company that's been in business smaller, that is ready to sort of move on to the next level, and we'll go talk to them maybe before they're ever thinking about selling. And that allows us to bring that capability in, have those people sort of join the Epicor family versus buying a big company, overpaying, spending 2 to 3 years trying to absorb it, and then potentially losing a lot of the key people. And for us, the real differentiation with Epicor has been our industry knowledge and capability and the people. And so if we get a product without people that really know it, the value is really not the same. So very purposeful, and I think the second thing, as I said, is client focus. So most of our acquisition, I'm big on reading, we get a lot of win-loss data. I'm a big data person, oddly enough. So I'm super social, but I love data. So we get all this win-loss information on all the deals we win and lose, and so I don't ever read the win reports. It drives my sales team crazy. I read the losses. And so in the losses, what we hear is a product gap or a capability gap or, we didn't integrate fast enough or whatever it may be, that gap to me becomes a potential area that we need to improve. So whether that's training or potentially looking at, hey, we need to solve that through an acquisition. And if you look at the acquisitions we've made, many of them in the last 3 years are very purposely focused on areas where we had product gaps based on our customer and prospect feedback. So
Be purposeful. That's great advice. Thank you, Lisa. Rajeev, not all distributors have access to deep pockets like SRS and capital like SRS. So what advice would you give to distributors out there? As you know, distributors operate on very thin margins. How can they remain competitive with companies like SRS?
On that side, I'm on the other side of the fence as well. We don't have deep pockets when it comes to spending. So I love the word be purposeful. So I think the way to think about it is, one, I would applaud our CEO. He has always been about being bold and taking leap on innovation. And using technology as a leverage to drive customer experience as well as efficiencies inside. Hence, the single platform strategy for 3 verticals. Imagine the leverage it goes. So while it may say you invested, but we're paying that investment multiple times over through that strategy. Now, coming back to, I think if you start with what problem are you trying to solve is the key. And that automatically leads to the answer if it's worth solving with technology, people, or process. And that should drive all the investment decisions. Whether a small distributor, all of us are constrained. If you had $1 of capital to invest, where would you invest? Would you hire a new salesperson because that can drive revenue? Will you solve putting e-commerce in place so that we can self-service customer, provide the utility and the convenience of e-commerce? So I think those decisions all of us are faced every day. Our mouth is bigger than our stomach, and we have to make those tough decisions. And if we kind of are super focused on the customer and the problem we're trying to solve for the customer, I think the answer filters easily to the top in the priorities. And that's what we use in terms of what problems are we trying to solve and why, and what's the return for the customer and hence for us.
That's great advice. The problem you're looking to solve and how do you allocate capital? It's really well said. So Lisa, you are in the ERP business, the single source of truth. Why is it important for different systems to talk to each other? We talked about integration. Why does a CRM need to talk to ERP or e-commerce need to talk to ERP and automation and all that?
Well, and I think part of it is, the word ERP has sort of lost its sexiness, right? It's ERP. I mean, I sold back when you had to switch ERPs in the year 2000 because the dates were going to mess up. That's the only reason why people bought. By the way, it was a very successful time because there was a compelling event. So I think that's part of the problem is ERP sort of got that tarnish. You don't see kids graduating from college saying, wow, I want to go into ERP, right? They want to do AI, they want to do data science, right? They want to do something sort of that's more cool. So I think one of the things that we've really tried to do is make sure people understand the value of ERP as a digital platform, right? So it is really the system that enables business processes, and if you have a strong ERP backbone that allows you to do that, then you have the ability to take advantage of great new technologies, integrate quickly, and really get the benefit of being flexible. And I think for distributors, especially in the economy we've seen, all over the place in the last 5 years, flexibility becomes your number one thing, right? So whether there's a new technology coming out that you want to quickly adapt, if you've got that sort of ERP backbone in and it's open, and you're able to leverage things that DCKAP brings together in terms of integration, then you have the ability to take new technologies and rapidly integrate them. The opposite of that is letting every single department pick whatever they want. Everybody picking a different AI platform, everybody picking a different BI platform, every company running on a different system, and you get a lot of inefficiencies and that flexibility and frankly, the sense of urgency we have now sort of goes away. So I think for us, our strategy is let's be the digital backbone and let's do that purposely by industry. So we don't try to cram 50 verticals into one product. We have very specialized products for each of the verticals we serve. That way they're easier to implement, easier to deploy, faster time to value, and very specific for that industry. But if I could change the acronym of ERP to something better, I would. But I like the concept of a digital backbone, and we'll stay with that for now.
Digital backbone. Looks like a new name. All right. So, Lisa, you're a women leader in the distribution and technology space, and winning teams have women in them. What do you think distributors can do to encourage more women to join the distribution industry? And is there any focused effort distributors can deploy?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question. I know when I joined, I got the opportunity to work for Triad Systems. They had me go work in customers first. That's how I learned the software. So I had to demonstrate the software before I was allowed to sell it. And I've always been product-based. So I even when I came to Epicor, I was like, I need to see a demonstration. And they thought I was crazy. And I'm like, I'm coming as an EVP, and I'm like, I still need to see all the software. So I think learning that early is key. And so for me, a lot of it is looking at the, even starting at college, right? So the major you choose helps. So I do a lot of mentoring of women in high school and college that are sort of grappling with what do I major in. A lot of them, if they don't want to do engineering, are like, well, I'll do business. But then they tend to go marketing, right? Where I'll be like, well, if you're somewhere in the central states, especially Dallas, consider supply chain. Supply chain is the blood of basically the United States, the essential supply chain that we run. And so if you have a supply chain degree, you're going to understand manufacturing, distribution, and the end consumer, and you can do anything, right? And so it just broadens. And so if they get into the right major to start, that sort of broadens their capability. They're likely to do an internship at a distributor or a manufacturer here in Texas, and that changes their mindset versus maybe saying, I want to go into fashion or entertainment. So I think starting as young as possible, and then we bring college grads in through our business development team. We do try to hire women into that and diversity into that, because again, we think that's important. We do find that if we get women at the business development level, we put them into clients, they understand the environment. There's a lot of studies that show women, if they're in the right company, they like the people they're working with, and there's an opportunity for advancement, they have a much higher percentage of ratio of staying with that company. So if you're able to bring them in early, you're likely to have somebody stay 20, 30-year employee that is super loyal, super successful, and continues to want to stay with that company, so you'll get their retention. So it does take extra work. I think it's important for women that are leaders and that are in senior roles to constantly continue to reach out and convince and talk to other women about joining, and I'm really passionate about that.
Thank you. That's very inspiring, Lisa. Thank you so much. Final few questions to both of you. So maybe I'll start with you, Rajeev, right? So there's no universal blueprint for a digital transformation. So every company is different. Let's say for a distributor out there who's just getting started in their digital transformation journey, how do they get started, or what are some of the baby steps they should take?
No, great question. And I think digital transformation is, again, one of those buzzwords that gets used a lot. And so you really need to simplify it into nuts and bolts. And I've been part of digital transformation journeys for a long time now. When retail started to have e-commerce, I think there was a question saying, why do I need e-commerce when I have points of presence? Or am I cannibalizing my retail sales by having e-commerce? Or what is the purpose of any kind of digitization? Whether I think ERP was well understood, people had recognized that. But as we went down this digital journey, and it posed different challenges. You talked about dirty data. Now you're putting a pane of glass on your dirty data for the world to see. And so it poses a lot of challenges. However, if you really see, I'll go back to what I said earlier as well. The why. Why do you want to go down? What's the imperative that's driving you down that path? Once you start to answer, hey, customers' buying journey starts by researching specs of a product, and they want to know whether this will fit my existing ecosystem of, say, a pool installation or certain parts. So their journey may begin online, and they may conclude their purchase in the branch or the store. So you're trying to solve that discovery process for the customer. There might be customers who are looking for utility and convenience of being able to do their job during the day. There are small crews, small contractors who are putting a roof in the daytime. They've sold their next job and they want to order the materials in the evening. So that being able to engage with the distributor anytime may be the imperative that's driving you to do a digital transformation. Now, they are on the roof and they're short a box of coil nails, and they want to be able to be on the roof and use any device to be able to place an order and a hotshot delivery to your location. That may be imperative that is driving you to go down that journey of digital transformation for the customer side of it. And however, you don't have to forget the employee side of the digital transformation. As you grow in size and scale, we have 700 different locations. For us to keep everybody informed, right from the drivers, warehouse loaders, about what benefits do they have, what is the CEO talking about, what are the benefits they have, and we pride ourselves in our culture. How do you introduce culture to 700 locations and unify the 700 locations about make money, have fun, and give back? What does it mean for the guy on the front line facing the customer, and how the corporate office is a frontline support team, not decision-making team for what they should do? So those are things that you need to leverage the technology at hand, which is digital today. Everybody has a cell phone in their hands, or you have screens, digital screens in the branches that you can leverage to communicate and unify that culture. So again, starting back with what imperative are you trying to solve? What challenges and friction in the customer experience or the employee experience as you acquire new companies or onboard new resources from the outside world into the company? How do you onboard them? Those are the reasons or imperatives. And one may be more important than the other for every company. That's a discussion that should be had before you jump into kind of the technology aspect of the digital transformation.
Yeah, cool. Culture, yeah, that plays a very big role. Shipping and logistics is a very big concern when it comes to distribution, and both of you, or the three of us, are in the technology industry. And if you think about it, there is a big wage gap between technology and non-tech. Recently, there was also a strike which was called off by UPS or Teamsters. So any insights you would like to share on this, Lisa? What do you think we can do to reduce the wage gap?
Well, I think it's an important issue, and I think for us, it's obviously staying flexible, have multiple sources, multiple suppliers, right? Like, it's important that you don't, I mean, one of the things we learned during the pandemic was not being too dependent on one supplier, one partner, increase your ecosystem, have multiple suppliers and capability. It drives competition. It prevents you from a situation like UPS if something strikes and that's your main carrier. Certainly, even with us, with our software, we try to think about that, like making sure that we don't lock a customer into one provider. So if it's, the quick ship, being able to use any potential shipper so that if UPS strikes, you could switch to FedEx or do something different. But I think that's really the name of the game, is we've learned that we've got to diversify, you've got to increase your ecosystem. We've seen distributors purchasing parts of their supply chain to help deal with that because they felt that they got stuck. And so whether it's bringing assembly in-house or creating alternatives, I think the world today is you've got to have a plan B, and you've got to be able to have multiple sources. And so the idea of a single source cheaper is great conceptually, but may not work in the real world in the event that something like this happens, right?
Definitely. Thank you, Lisa. And anything you want to add, Rajeev, to this?
So I think I'll take a slightly different slant from a wage gap perspective. Obviously, different skills, different capabilities do demand that. But one of the approaches, I'll just share the example, what SRS has done. Our CEO was leading on this front a while ago, and he's had this concept of make money, have fun, give back as the simple mantra he lives by. And when he says make money, it's not for the few executives in the exec team. His belief has been rising tides raise all boats, which means the suppliers to us, our employees, and our customers as well. And that's the philosophy. So we were the first one to declare in the space, at least, in our verticals, a $17 an hour minimum wage to be implemented within 2 years. When the inflation kicked into high gear, we went ahead and introduced an inflation bonus for people who were making a little less than $60,000 and things like that. So he's always on the front line. And the one benefit that we've done is everybody in the company is a stockholder. So they make decisions based on as an employee and as a stakeholder in the company. So even our warehouse loaders and frontline people who cannot invest in buying the company stock, and by the way, we are private equity held, but we have a very strong employee ownership concept. 25% of the company is owned by employees. In first 2 rounds of liquidity the company has had since being born in 2008, we've created about 150 plus millionaires, and the goal, the next round is probably 500 plus. But every frontline employee, even though they can't invest, they have employee growth incentive plan, which is linked directly to the stock. So when there is a liquidity that happens, they will be meaningfully part of that beneficiary. So that brings in great level of alignment to the vision, and you can say vested at the frontline level in the success of the company. So I know there are a lot of companies who are starting out that journey. we are early on in that journey about employee ownership and stock ownership, and that's worked great for us.
Oh, these are great insights. Thanks for sharing that, Rajeev. Cool. I'm just curious to know about your leadership style. Both of you are great as leaders, and I'm sure your leadership style would have evolved over a period of time. Maybe can you talk about that, Lisa? How has that evolved over a period of time?
Well, I think first, I grew up in a sports family, all brothers. I have all sons, so sports has been a big part of it, and that's really how I build my team. I view myself as a coach, so I try to develop my management team, always trying to convince them what they need to learn to be at my level, right? So it's a constant sort of, you're great at what you do, these are the areas you need to continue to work on, and then just like a team, I have very diverse players. So because it takes a lot of different personalities, you need the high achievers, maybe more high maintenance, you need the supporting roles, you need all of that to really deliver consistent results over time. And so that's a big piece. That coaching piece is one thing that stayed constant. I think the thing for me that's probably evolved is that as I moved up, I got to a certain point where I had a lot of people working for me, and so it was easy to say, well, they do that for me now. And so I almost, stayed at a different level. And I realized, especially as I became president of the company, to solve a lot of the issues and be impactful, I had to be at a detailed level. So I think the big learning thing for me is the higher you get up, actually the more detail you have to be. You have to understand the customer's pain, you have to understand the issues going on in the company, and you can't do that sitting in an office, right? So I'm out in the field, I spend most of my time with clients, and I find that getting into the details at this level is probably the one thing that people think as they get higher up that they will be able to just be more strategic. And I would say a lot of my day is tactical. But then the strategy work I'm doing, I know I'm solving things, right? Because it's really critical to what my customers are going through.
Get into details. Rajeev?
Oh, great journey, great, lovely learning. Again, I'm still work in progress, I would say. That's the first caveat. My team will say that. I'm work in progress here, some of them listening. Again, I think there are a couple of big turning points in my career. I've always prided myself with, my title has been one, but at heart, I'm a solution architect as a technologist. And that's something I find it very difficult to let go of. So I kind of look at, even if you heard me throughout today, the questions I asked, I go back to what problem I'm trying to solve, where am I going, why? And those have to get answered. Why is it important for me to get engaged now? So it's always what and why, lots of questions that come up to my mind. And that's how I operated from kind of beginning of my career. But at Accenture, I had an opportunity to go through a formal 6-month program called Coaching-Based Leadership. That actually kind of was a big turning point for me to change from how do you grow more leaders along with you, like you, and kind of be able to think differently and solve different problems by asking a lot of questions. That program really helped me evolve as a little bit of who I am today while not losing my core traits of the solution architecture. And that allows me to help focus on people goals. That's the same approach of solution architecture. What are you doing today? Where do you want to be? And help them develop a journey map and to get there. And that is kind of key. If you're vested in your team, first of all, creating the team and the culture and the mindset of outcome-based and holding people accountable, at the same time, providing them the mentoring and coaching to learn. Creating a fail-safe environment, not of a every failure is you're hired or fired kind of mindset. That is a big part of this thing, to creating the safe environment, giving a backstop to your team is really, really important as a part of this journey. And you'll see a lot of leaders emerge out of this process who probably some people might have written them off. And when they get that safe environment, open environment to have that dialogue, to grow.
Great insights. I mean, both of you talked about coaching, and coaching plays a really great role in terms of team building and being a part of within. A couple of last questions. Rajeev, thank you again for being a customer. Can you share about your experience working with DCKAP to the audience here?
No, again, I think DCKAP had been part of, I think, SRS Distribution in a small way even before I started. And as we were looking for a partner who could help us scale our, what I call the landscape e-commerce and the pool e-commerce on a flash of a notice, we had experienced a partner, I won't name names here, who we struggled with to deliver basic e-commerce capabilities. And that's a time when we discovered DCKAP and their expertise on Adobe and Magento. That's our platform for e-commerce. And we challenged Karthik and his team to rapidly scale. And following the follow the sun model, both we needed people onshore and offshore. We didn't have our team, internal team, built out fully. We wanted them to take ownership of the architecture as well as the quality of code and build truly a multi-tenant platform on a single platform. So we literally have 16 pool websites because we gave a website to each brand, and same thing on the landscape side. So with unique requirements, some they had sorted in the past, some not. So I think they kind of lived up to the challenge and scaled the team. Obviously, any relationship goes through ups and downs, but they persisted and they were with us, and they've done a great job helping us launch and be part of the journey. We have a pretty big roadmap. Kind of soon, next week, 2 weeks from now, I present to the board on the aggressive plan we have for growing our e-commerce business, and I'm very happy in the way they've scaled and been a good partner to us for now.
Thank you, Rajeev. Means a lot. And Lisa, you've been on our podcast, which is very popular, by the way. A lot of people listen to it, to your talk. And also thanks for being here as a speaker at the Roundup. Anything you would like to share about DCKAP?
Yeah, I think as a software provider, I mean, you guys have been great to work with. Epicor really believes in our ecosystem. And so having partners that can bring services capability, integration capability, and probably more important are events like this, thought leadership, just distributors being able to share what their issues are, what their challenges are, and having the ability to talk about what their potential solutions are and being able to voice that. I think that openness and that creativity, I think you guys have done just a phenomenal job helping to facilitate that. So we really enjoy the relationship.
Thank you, Lisa. Means a lot. Let me end in DCKAP style. What book are you reading right now?
We are undergoing a pretty big customer experience journey. So for those of you that have put in ERP, that's your big thing. We don't build product, we don't distribute product, we make software, but ultimately we deliver a service. And so we are going through a pretty major customer experience journey that I'm sort of leading. And so there's a great book called Amp It Up. It's by Frank Slootman. He's the CEO of Snowflake, past CEO of ServiceNow. And it's really about getting your company on board with a pretty monumental change and also delivering a sense of urgency. So very much some of the topics you talked about is how do you get people on board, focused on sort of a new delivery instead of just selling software. How do we run a distributor's business for the next 20 years, regardless of where they're going and where they're expanding and how they're growing? It's a very different model than, hey, here's some software, have someone implement it and call our support line if you need help. So that's our big journey, that's our big focus. It's a top priority for me, and I think this book has given me some great lessons learned and hopefully will help make that journey smoother for us over the next few years.
Thank you, Lisa. And Rajeev, what book are you reading?
I'm reading, you can say, like I said, work in progress. A friend of mine, we met in Dubai this year as a school reunion, and he, after our meeting, we were obviously shared a lot of our childhood stories, but he sent a recommendation called Power of Regrets by Daniel Pink. I've just started it, so I couldn't tell you all about it, but I'm pretty curious about kind of just the title that I got it actually 2 days ago. So I'm going to let you know how it went.
Cool, awesome. Power of Regrets. I just started reading The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, Robin Sharma. Again, thank you so much, Rajeev, and thank you, Lisa, for joining us. Thank you so much, guys. Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Rajeev. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's definitely, we faced a lot of challenge, especially in our roofing business, and just some numbers. We created a roofing e-commerce platform about 3 years ago. In the 3 years, we have now sold $2 billion of roofing products online. And this is a contractor who is pretty, you can say, a chuck in a truck to a sophisticated builder who's obviously have their own full system, so they won't come to your e-commerce. It's been a journey. And again, I'll go back to what Lisa said earlier, trying to focus on what do they want. Like there are some people who come to see their past invoices because they want to go do a warranty claim for their customer. Some customers, they want the convenience of being able to order it in the evening because that works for them. So we had to offer a platform and not insist that it's an ordering platform. We called it an ecosystem of capabilities to engage them in whatever way. We provide them hail maps to see, hey, in the last 7 days, where was hail? Because for our roofers, that's ice diamonds. And for them to be able to go find out the houses they did 4 years ago, they had a hail, should they call them again? That's a lead generation tool for them. So our goal is to provide the convenience and the utility, and everybody's convenience and utility may be different. So we're not insisting that it's an ordering only platform, and we're trying to change the mindset of why our e-commerce platform exists. So that is kind of going towards the customer and looking at what they need and solving for that, or versus saying, here's our e-commerce platform, we want you to place orders using this, don't call our branches. That's not. We'll take an order on a napkin, we'll take an order on an email, and we'll take it on an e-commerce.
One other point, just, the sales side of me, I can't resist, but like you can address that with commission plans too. You can make sure that a customer, regardless of how the order is placed, that rep is still getting credit for that, it's still going into their bucket, and those are things that are important if you want to retain that customer relationship. We don't care how you order, we have a relationship with you if you order online, in person, however, your customer relationship manager still gets part of that sales credit.
Thank you, guys. Let's give them a big hand. Yeah.